Good morning, everyone. Good morning. And welcome to the Unity of Charlotte. My name is Bill Barron. I'm president of the Board of Trustees here, and we feel blessed that you could join us today. We would also like to welcome those folks who are watching on YouTube or Access 21. Unity of Charlotte is here nurturing a deep, mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. Simply put, love, grow, and serve. We especially believe that spiritual community enhances the quality of our life, the experience of life, making it richer, deeper, and more expanded. If you are joining us here today for the first time, we especially want to welcome you. Any of the people with blue ribbons on their name tag are available to assist you in or answer whatever questions you may have. If you're in need of spiritual support, you can take a prayer request. You can make a prayer request in our Ministry of Prayer box in the lobby, or if you're adventuresome, you can do it online to unityofcharlotte.org. If I can do it, anybody can. We always have many wonderful things happening here at the church, not the least of which is today we have our wonderful guest speaker, Reverend Sally Robbins, who is back here to... We appreciate Sally in any circumstance, and we love her messages, and we particularly appreciate your being here on such short notice. As many of you know, Reverend Marty was called out of town. I'll say a bit about that in a minute, but Sally will be our guest speaker today. She comes here from the Center for Spiritual Living in Asheville, having been an attendee here for a number of months before moving to Asheville. A couple of quick announcements. On Saturday, next Saturday, the 30th, we will have our spring cleanup. And that is, I want to take a moment to acknowledge Doug Will and Martin Wells and their crew who have been doing an incredible job. Would you guys stand up, and anybody on the crew? Chris, please stand up. Just let us acknowledge you. These guys are doing a great job, and we really appreciate it. So this spring cleanup will be a great way to put a finishing touch to what they're doing, and plus it's a lot of fun. It's a great community. Unfortunately, we won't be having a barbecue afterwards because there's a conflict with another event that's here, but please come and enjoy that, and the more we have, the more we can get done, and it's amazing when you get a group of people out here what can be done. So I invite you to consider being here. The Sunday following, or next Sunday, Reverend Marty will be back, but we also have a workshop at 12:30 put on by Joseph Droshagen, who was here before. That's on Ignite Your Passion workshop that a number of you have been to when he was here not that long ago, and others will have the opportunity to do that. And finally, a quick note from Reverend Marty. His mother had emergency surgery earlier in the week, and he went out to Oklahoma City. She's doing much better, and Marty wanted me to give you this note that he says, "I am grateful for your prayers and support. Mom is recovering from her surgery well. I look forward to getting home." So we'll look forward to having him back next week. And now, please relax and allow the music to take you on the inward journey. Our prayer today is led by Reverend Sally Robbins.
So I just invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable. Allow yourself to take a deep breath in and let it out. Take another cleansing breath in and let it out. In this moment, this sacred instant, the holy instant, I know that the power and the glory of God are surely present. That there is only one power, one presence, one mind, one joy, one beauty, and that whatever we choose to call it, God, Spirit, the great I am, whatever name we call it. It is here. And I know that that presence, that very presence that we can feel right now, is alive and well in me, in every individual in this room, everyone watching via YouTube or Access 21, however they are hearing the sound of my voice. Each and every individual is knowing right now their own divinity, deep in their inner self, the unchangeable, the immovable, the holy, the divine. And so we revel in that right now. We know that which brought us here. We know that which we are here to do. And so we tune into that frequency of God right now. We tune into radio station WGOD and know that there is a holy presence that is enveloping us, embracing us, surrounding us, and that we can and do live and move and have our being in this very presence. I know that each and every person here today is being called forth to do a great and mighty work. There are no small acts. I know that each one of us is here to do something so spectacular with the incredible gifts that only we have. And so I know that each and every person here has something special, a spark within them, that divine spark that is lighting them up right now, and that the entire world can see. I know that each one of us has a special place in this world. And so I just give great thanks to the recognition that all is God and God is all, and that we are showing up as God today, as us, beautiful, powerful, free, joyous, capable, wise. All of those God qualities are us wrapped up together. And we just say, thank you, Spirit. Thank you, Spirit, for the acknowledgement, for the knowingness of who we are and whose we are. For all of this and so much more, I'm grateful. Grateful for the opportunity to speak my word and know the truth. I let it be so, and together we say, and so it is. Amen. And now we have a congregational song.
Stand. And remain standing for the affirmation.
if you would please remain standing for our March affirmation. Let's say it together. Today I walk in the light of divine love. With clarity and conviction, I dwell in peace. Wisdom governs my thoughts, words, and actions. Spirit guides me in a life of wholesome service. Today I walk in the light of divine love. Thank you. You may be seated. Today I walk in the light of divine love. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. It is great to be back. I've been gone only 3 months, but it seems like 3 years. I've missed you. I know. It is wonderful to be back. So I'm going to be reading our inspirational reading today from a book. It's a little tiny book called Your Invisible Power by Genevieve Barrand. Genevieve was the only student of Thomas Troward, and she was a powerhouse in her own right. And this little book is fabulous, so I'm going to be reading a passage from that this morning. She says, "We all know that the balloon was the forefather of the airplane. In 1766, Henry Cavendish, an English nobleman, proved that hydrogen gas was 7 times lighter than air. From that discovery, the balloon came into existence. And from the ordinary balloon, the dirigible, a cigar-shaped airship, was evolved. Study of aeronautics and laws of the aerial locomotion of birds and projectiles led to the belief that a mechanism could be evolved by which heavier-than-air machines could be made to travel from place to place and remain in the air by the propulsive force that would overcome the law of gravitation. Professor Langley of Washington, who developed much of the theory which others afterward improved upon, was subjected to much derision when he sent a model airplane up only to have it bury its nose in the muddy waters of the Potomac. But the Wright brothers, who experimented later, realized the possibility of traveling through the air in a machine that had no gas bag, no balloon. They saw themselves enjoying this mode of transportation with great facility. It is said that one of the brothers would tell the other when their various experiences did not turn out as they expected. "It's all right, brother," one would say. "I can see myself riding in that machine, and it travels easily and steadily." Those Wright brothers knew that they wanted what they wanted and kept their pictures, their mental pictures, in front of them constantly. Now transportation through the air is developing rapidly. In visualizing or making a mental picture, you are not endeavoring to change the laws of nature. You are fulfilling them. Yes. Thank you, Genevieve. All right. And so now we are so blessed to have some special music today by our one, our only, Lawrence Tolliver. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Reverend Sally. Start with me. Empty people live in darkness every minute, every hour. Hear the cry of desperation from a billion broken hearts. With a need so great, where do we even start? Let it start with me. Open up my eyes, fill my heart with your compassion, free my mind from all distractions, use my hands, set the captive free, move my feet to follow after you, Lord, change the world and let it start with me. the plan that you've begun. You have promised to go with me to the edges of it all and change everything. Keep me from your call. Let it start with me. Open up my eyes. Fill my heart with your compassion. Free my mind from all distraction. Use my hands to set the captive free. Move my feet to follow after you, Lord. Change the world and let it start with me. Take my life, all that I have called my own. Everything I am is yours alone. And let it start with me. Open up my eyes, fill my heart with your compassion, free my mind from all distractions, use my hands, setting the captive free, move my feet to follow after you, Lord, change the world and let it start with me. Open up my eyes, fill my heart with your compassion, free my mind from all distractions, use my hands to set the captive free, move my feet to follow after you, Lord, to change the world and let it start with me, with me. Let it start with me.
Well, now that he's in his seat, let's send a little bit more love Lawrence's way. Yes! Woo! That's one of my favorite songs that you do, Lawrence. It set me up perfectly. Thank you. Thank you. Set me up perfectly for this talk. So the title of my talk today is just 11 More Steps. Now, I had somebody ask me before, is this about recovery? No, not those kind of steps, but steps that we take in our spiritual growth. So I want to start by telling a story. You know how I love my stories. About this man. His name is Captain Lewis Rudd. Lewis Rudd is a British Army captain, and he became the first Briton to successfully cross Antarctica. He just did this in November and December. So what he did was he actually crossed Antarctica in what they call unsupported. Unsupported means you do it walking or skiing. You don't have dogs pulling you. You don't have way stations along the way for refueling. You do it all. And so he pulled a sled behind him that weighed about 400 pounds. Yes. And the 925 miles that he went was almost all uphill. Snow and ice. It wasn't a beautiful hike like we have here in North Carolina. It was across a pretty unforgiving landscape that was beautiful in its own right, and yet this is where he slept. He had in that sled, he had his tent, he had his food, he had all the supplies that he needed, and he would go as far as he could and then stop for the day and pitch his tent. And because he did it in the southern hemisphere in December, that's summer. So this is the middle of the night because the sun never sets this time of year there in Antarctica. So for 56 days he did this. He walked across snow and ice. He sometimes was doing it in whiteout conditions, and there were times, and he's all by himself. no one to talk to, no dogs to play with. He was doing it by himself. Now, there was another gentleman who was doing this walk the same time, an American by the name of Colin O'Brady, who started the same day he did, and they dropped them off about a mile apart. They could see each other for a few days, but then they both were on their own. Colin actually ended up pulling ahead of him and arrived 2 days prior to when Lewis did. But Colin actually waited for him because they had started this journey together and they wanted to end it together. So here's Lewis out there. You see the thing on the front of that thing on his belt? That's the compass. Because he's sledding with his poles and he can't hold a compass, so he had built this contraption to hold the compass out because that was the only way he knew he was going in the right direction. When it's white everywhere, you hope you're going in the right direction. So here's Lewis slogging away. That's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know. So he finished on December 29th, 2018, just a few months ago. And then in January, he was interviewed on CBS This Morning. And they asked him, how did you do that? How did you survive all of that? And he said, well, there were times when I felt like stopping and thinking, I just can't do this. It's too harsh. It's too long. And he said, then I remembered the 11 steps. And the reporter said, well, what's the 11 steps? And he said, in the early 1900s, just after the turn of that century, a man by the name of Captain Scott had set out to cross the Antarctic, just like he had. He had made it to the South Pole. He and his expedition had made it to the South Pole. They were on their way back, and they were trying to get to a depot where they could supply. They could get food, they could rest a little bit, but they didn't make it. And they perished. They were found a few miles from the depot, and they hadn't made it. And Lewis Rudd said in this interview that someone calculated that if Captain Scott and his team had gone just 11 more steps every day, they would have made it. Just 11 more steps. And so Lewis Rudd says, every night now, as I'm finishing up my skiing and I'm bone tired, I go 11 more steps. I get to the end and I go 11 more steps. And then I know that I'm done. And I've thought about that interview quite a bit. I've thought about the 11 steps and how I can use that in my own life. How can I take those extra steps in my own journey, my own spiritual growth, my own path, when I want to stop back there because I'm bone tired? But if I can take 11 more steps and do what needs to be done by me, then I know that I will have completed my journey. And so this really inspired me, because there's many times when I've wanted to quit and I wondered how close I really was to my dream and my desire. And if I'd just taken 11 more steps, maybe I could have accomplished what Lewis Rudd did. You know, I've said it here before and I'll say it again. Conscious living is a full-time job. Would you agree? It is not for the faint and weak-hearted. It is not for those who just want to dilly-dally around. Maybe I'll think about spirituality in my spare time. No, because just like in that movie, I'm thinking The Matrix, which was a very metaphysical movie, by the way, when Morpheus holds out the red pill and the blue pill, and he says to Neo, take one of them. The thing is, you can't go back. Once you become spiritually evolved, that is it. You can't go back. I wish sometimes I could go back to an unconscious life, but I can't. Because once you become conscious, that's it. And now I know the responsibility that I have to grow myself. because consciousness is a full-time job. It is something that I have to make time for. I have to do my spiritual practices, and I have to be willing to step up and do what is mine. Now, maybe it's not mine to walk across Antarctica. I think I know it's not mine to walk across Antarctica. But there are things that I can do. There are things that we all can do. Would you agree? That we have our own jobs to do, and it's ours to do. So there's 3 concepts I want to leave with you today. Oh, this is Lewis Rudd. Whenever I'm on a polar journey now and I finish skiing for the day, I always take 11 more steps. Think about that this week. So the first thing I want you to walk away with today is this is a do-it-yourself teaching. I wish that I could do a Spock mind meld. Do you remember Star Trek? You know, where Spock put his hand on somebody's head and he could like transmit all the wisdom. I wish I could do that. But that's not the way it works. I have students who wish that I could give them the formulas, the secret of life. That's all they have to do is follow that. Or give me a mantra that all I have to do is say the mantra and my life will be easy peasy from there on. It doesn't work like that. This is a do-it-yourself teaching. One of my favorite ministers is Reverend Dyke. And he said, this is the do-it-yourself church. The do-it-yourself church. The only Savior in this philosophy is God in you. That's it. As another minister said, if you're praying to the cross, get off of it. We need the wood. That's not what we're here to do. We're not here to say that someone else did something for us. We're here to do the work ourselves. We're here to be that which we came to be. A fully spiritual being, a full spiritual being, showing up as you. Because when I show up as Sally, that's the God in me showing up. But I can't show up like Patricia shows up or Bill shows up. No, all of us have our own gifts. We're showing up as us. The second thing is be your own laboratory. Now, my teacher told me this many years ago, and I've tried to live it to the very best of my ability. We can talk about principles and spiritual philosophy all day long, but the point is we have to use them. I'm not interested in what you know. I'm more interested in what you're doing. How are you utilizing these principles in your life? Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, said, I don't believe our movement is worth a dime unless something happens. Because that's not talking. That's doing. It's us getting out into the world and showing up, guess what? As love, as kindness, as compassion, as caring, as understanding, as wisdom, as beauty, as power. Going back to Reverend Dyke for a second, he was asked by a reporter, what about all the poor people? You have these really nice clothes. How can you wear fine suits? What's wrong with, how come poor people stay poor? And he said, wrong mantra. Wrong mantra. They have bought into an idea that there is something less than. And so what his job was to do was to teach people by living a prosperous life that that's what we're all here to do and be. Are you with me? A few of you are. Are you with me? Yes. Yes. So when we are showing up as prosperous beings, when we are showing up as absolute, capable, wise, spiritual, powerful people, then we're showing the way, aren't we? Someone came to Charles Fillmore once, and she said, last night I dreamt that I could fly. And he said, can you take that passion and that power and pay the rent? Can you live the prosperity that you are? That's what we're here to do. We're here to fly in our own way as prosperous beings. Joel Goldsmith was very, very steeped. He was a contemporary of the Fillmores. He was a contemporary of Ernest Holmes. And Joel Goldsmith really walked his talk as well. He wasn't interested in someone that wasn't doing their own inner work. And he talks about how he became a Christian Science practitioner. That's what he started out in, was Christian Science. And he loved the teachings and he loved the purity, and he said, you know, I can heal. I know that I have that capability because that's what God has indwelled within me. And so he moved to Boston, where the mother church of Christian Science is, and they were encouraging him, you know, put up a shingle and become a practitioner because you'll be able to make a good living doing that. And so he rented a room and he put it out there, but he said, if this principle works, it's not because I'm going in and advertising myself within the church. It's not because people know that I'm here in Boston. It's because I am doing the work and those clients that I need will be attracted to me. So I'm going to rent that room. I'm not going to advertise that I'm there. I'm just going to sit in that room and treat anyone who comes into the room knowing that I have the healing power of God within me. That's a pretty big statement for someone. Talk about taking 11 more steps. I mean, he was ready to prove this. And he said, if I can't prove it, then I know that this is not a philosophy that I can be with for the rest of my life. So the days would go by. One person would come in. Another person would come in. It was very, very slow at start. And he had bills to pay. And he was like, how am I going to do this? Okay, God, I need to know a deeper understanding of what God is. That was his 11 steps, to go deeper within to find out who he was as a spiritual being. Did he really believe this? That God was a source of his being. God was a source of his supply. Not other people, not a church, not a job, not the government, but God and God alone. And sure enough, as people were coming in, he was having healings with them. And then word started to spread. If you want something, go to see Joel. And soon he was seeing about 300 people a day. A day. And he was praying for those people. And he was having healings right and left. Because he knew the power of God that was within him. He knew that he was being taken care of. And his financial woes disappeared. He never looked back from that moment on. He was willing to take the 11 steps, those extra steps, to say, what is it that I really believe, and can I go within and know that my source is God and God alone? That's a very powerful place to be. So Joel Goldsmith, quoted in his biography, he says, the heavens did not open up and pour down $1,000 bills. It came slowly, and it came almost grudgingly, forcing me to acknowledge humanly my lack and inwardly to stand fast in the realization of this truth. So whatever you are going through right now, the obstacle is the way, my friends. Marcus Aurelius said that. The obstacle is the way. If there's something that is blocking you from your good or your perceived blockage, maybe that's the way for you to go 11 more steps. Maybe that's the way for you to have a deeper understanding of truly who you are as a spiritual being on this planet. Maybe that obstacle is the way for you to not only go around, but go through, so that you can know forevermore that there is nothing that stands between you and your good and you and your God. Can I get an amen to that? Amen. You have the power. So whatever obstacle is in your way, if it's lack, if it's limitation, if it's ill health, if it's busted relationships, whatever it is, bless it. Bless it. And say, thank you, Spirit. I can now go deeper. I can take 11 more steps and go to that place that knows that I am supply, I am prosperity, I am beauty, I am love, I am joy. Oh, I'm on a preaching roll here. Woo! All right. So, the third thing, be willing to do what others won't. You know, this is a no blame, no shame kind of philosophy also. We don't blame anyone if you're not getting it or you don't choose to get it, whatever. If you come, you go, whatever. We're not here to hold anyone to this philosophy. We're not here to hold anyone to a particular teaching. We're here to share what has worked for us. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, maybe there's something out there for you. But this is what I know. That I have moved to a place in my spiritual growth in many instances because I was willing to do the work. I was willing to do sometimes what others wouldn't. I was willing to take those 11 extra steps and be in a place that sometimes was uncomfortable, sometimes was scary, sometimes was really not the place that I wanted to be. Can you relate to that? Yes. We've all been there. And yet, that is the place where we know we're in that transition time, and sometimes we just have to hold on during that transition time. I love that phrase, when one door closes, another one opens, but it's hell in the hallway. And sometimes that hallway is really an uncomfortable place to be. And this is where you get to show up and be willing to do what others will not. Louis Rudd, he was willing to walk 11 more steps every day. The Dalai Lama, who, if anyone, has had a tremendous amount of... he's gone through a lot, would you agree? I mean, we all know what he's lost his country. He's lost millions of his fellow countrymen who were slaughtered. They tore down temples. I mean, Tibet has been ravaged. And he had to flee to another country. He lives in India now. And a reporter was asking him, how can you still be happy? Because every time you see the Dalai Lama, he's smiling, isn't he? Doesn't he have a great smile? He has a great laugh. And a reporter said, how can you be happy when you have seen the devastation, when you have seen the slaughtering, when you know what has happened to your people? And I love what he said. He said, I feel everything, but peace is more than that. I feel everything, but peace is more than that. So he's making a conscious choice to take the 11 more steps from the conflict, from the turmoil, from what he can see in the outer world to that place of inner peace where nothing can be disturbed, nothing can move, nothing can change. It is that immovable, unchangeable spirit within us. When you can live at that place, the world is your oyster, my friends. None of us are perfect at that. We all get to practice this on a regular basis, don't we? We get all smiled up in here. We get hugged up and loved up. And then we walk out and someone cuts us off on Arrowwood and we go, "Arr!" We go right back to our humanness, don't we? That's life. But the quicker we can rebound, the quicker we can come back, the quicker we can realize the truth, that is our work. I'm going to close with a story about this young man. His name is Matt Dorio. Matt has worked for several professional teams, sports teams. He is now working for the Portland Trail Blazers. Isn't that smile great? He has a great smile. He's an infectiously enthusiastic young man, and he loves his job. He shows up as God, as Matt, and is doing a fantastic job in this spiritual world. He got tested one day. He was in the grocery store line. I'm going to read to you because he tells it so much better than I. He says, I was just standing in the cashier line of the grocery store. I wore my Portland Trail Blazers Pride sweatshirt today to work. It's one of my favorite articles of clothing. An older gentleman standing right behind me decided to say, why are you wearing that rainbow shirt? Are you some sort of... And there was a homophobic slur there, which I'm not going to repeat. Now, they're just standing in line at the grocery store. And this man behind him is not only being rude, but being unkind. And Matt says back to him, very nicely, Well, sir, I am a gay man, yes. And I wear this to show people that I'm not only proud of myself and my community, but also the organization I work for, who supports diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, at that point, Matt's proven himself to be the bigger man here. He did not stoop to the level of the first man, and he just said his piece, turned around, and continued waiting in line. That would just shut most people up, but not the man behind Matt. The man continued to badger Matt. He said, "Have fun in hell. Hope you're proud of the choice you decided to make." This man then goes on to mumble homophobic slurs to me the whole time I'm waiting in line. I ignore him, I pay for my food, and I start to walk away. When we are in a space where unskilled behavior becomes apparent, and that's what I like to call it, unskilled behavior. I may be a little bit more skilled in kindness and compassion as you are, but there are lots of unskilled people out there, are there not? Who will hide behind hate, hide behind all kinds of things that we know are not the truth. And so, in the midst of unskilled behavior, this is where you get to walk your 11 steps. This is where you get to show who you really are. And Matt had done so in a kind and compassionate manner. But the story isn't over yet. Because the law of karma, the law of cause and effect, comes swinging back like a tornado. As Matt's walking away from the checkout towards the door, he hears the man who has only 3 things being rung up, and then he hears that the card that the man has used has been declined. And the cashier tries it again. It's declined again. Now, Matt is on his way out the door. He's on his way out. He hears this, and of course, to the great embarrassment of the man, he turned around. He walked the 11 steps back to the cashier. He pulled out his card and he said, "Here, I'll pay for it." The man was stunned. The whole line was stunned because they had seen what had gone down. So the cashier rings up his groceries, and the old man was completely baffled after having treated him so unkindly that Matt had come back and done this. And Matt says, he looked at me and said, "Why would you do that?" I said, "Well, sir, unlike my sexuality, which is not a choice, I'm choosing to be a nice person. I hope you find it in your heart to understand your words can be hurtful, but I'm choosing to see you for the person that you are, and I wanted to help you." The old man said nothing, and Matt walked away. Yeah, wow. Matt walked those 11 steps back. He did not have to do that. He certainly was in his righteousness. When you think, I have a right to be angry in this, that's a really tricky place to be in. He had a right to be angry with being called such horrible names. And yet, he looked above that and saw that man for who he was, another spiritual being on the path who simply was unskilled in how he was handling life. We all have something very valuable to learn from Matt. And Matt ended by saying, "Take the high road, people. Be the better person and show people that hate is never the answer. Be brave, stand up, and kill them with kindness." Yes. Isn't that fabulous? Yes. This young man, I tell you, if this is our future, we are in very good hands. This is a young man who gets it, who understands that we've got to take those 11 more steps to whatever it is that we are here to do. And life will show up. I loved our first song, "How can I serve today, sweet Spirit?" If you simply ask that question, guess what? Spirit will find a way to put something right in your path. And you get to go, "Oh, this is mine to do." And that will be your soul's greatest adventure if you allow it. So what in your life is calling you forward to take 11 more steps? What in you is saying, I need to take more steps here. I need to go deeper. I need to dive in. I need to understand what I'm here to be and who I'm here to be and whose I'm here to be. I invite you this week to take 11 more steps. It will be the greatest adventure you've ever had. Namaste. Good catch. All right. Okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? Oh, we got another song. Oh, we got a prayer. I guess I get to do a prayer. All right. That is what is in front of me to do. All right, so let's just take all that in. And let's just know the truth. The truth that we are absolutely capable and have the kindness, have the courage, have the capacity, have the bravery, have what it takes to take those 11 more steps in our lives. I call forth the very best of ourselves, the highest consciousness, the highest awareness, that highest space within us that knows that we are absolutely here to be on point and on purpose for God. I know that Spirit is having its way with us right now. It is gently calling us to that expanded awareness. It is gently calling us to a greater expression of life on this planet. I know that each one of us is now saying yes to that calling, saying yes to that higher expansion and awareness that knows that we are on the right path. One foot in front of the other. We don't need to worry about what's a mile down the road. What's the next step? And then the next. And then the next. I know that I have within me, as does everyone within the sound of my voice, that which I need to know at the moment that I need to know it. That which I need to know will be revealed to me in the moment that I need to know it. That which I need to hear will be heard in the moment that I need to hear it. And so I know that each one of us is saying an affirmative to all that is going on within our life. We are blessing it. We are knowing that it is calling us to a greater experience. We are knowing that there is only God in all of our activity. We are knowing that even in the difficulty, even in the unkindness, even the unskilled behavior that might be displayed around us, that we can call it good and very good. And so I just say thank you, Spirit, for allowing us to see the truth of who we are and who everyone on our path is, a divine being, a divine being, a divine being, and only a divine being. There is no separation. We are all one. We let it be so, and together we say, and so it is. Amen. And now, finally, we get Brother Lawrence Tolliver. Again, let's bring him on up with a warm welcome. Yes.
She encouraged you, and this song will also. Don't let nobody drag your spirit down. And if you feel like moving and clapping and singing, do it. You might slip, you might slide, you might stumble and fall by the roadside, but don't you let nobody drop your spirit down. Nobody drag your spirit down. Now while you're walking in this heaven, don't you let nobody drag your spirit down. Walk with the rich, walk with the poor, learn from everybody what people stand around trying to figure out which way the wind's gonna blow. But don't you let nobody drag your spirit down. Now while you're walking in this heaven, don't you let nobody drag your spirit down. Well, you might slip, you might slide, you might fall by the roadside, but don't you let nobody drag your spirit down. While you're walking in this heaven, don't you let nobody drag your spirit down. Now while you're walking in this heaven, don't you let nobody drag your spirit down. Yeah.
You would think that we work together on the songs and everything, but I tell you, God's in charge. Perfect. It's perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Lawrence. All right, so let's all stand. We're going to close with our prayer of protection and then sing our peace song. So as we join in hands today, let's say it together. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.